Hey guys, I am going to record a session today. My last live session was pretty laggy for some reason, and I just had the cable company out here checking all my connections and everything. So anyway, thanks for joining me. My name's Ron. This is my channel for radiology technologists. You can see a lot of my stuff at my blog, theradiologictechnologist.com. What I wanted to talk to you today is that there's a lot of technologists getting their hours cut lately. A lot of people are getting sent home and told to use their PTO because there's not enough volumes. And it's, it's funny because there's some areas where we're getting hammered and some areas where we're getting sent home. So this video is for those of you that are finding your volumes are dropping and you're being sent home and you really don't want to go home, and you especially don't want to use your hard-earned PTO to go home. So what I thought I would do is offer up some ideas of what you might be able to do in lieu of going home early. It's some suggestions, things that I know are needed around the department that maybe you can do in lieu of being sent home early. And what I've done here is I've just brought up, let me switch, I got a dual screen going on here. I've just brought up a lot of things that I've got in my files that kind of a work history of what I've been doing over the past 10 years. And in it is a lot of day-to-day routine stuff that has to get done that really anybody in the department can do it. Doesn't have to be the director or the manager or the supervisor. And so I'm just going to name some things. Maybe you can write them down or whatever you want to do, and think about how maybe you can approach your boss and say, hey, instead of sending me home, why don't I work on one of these three things, and it'll help you out and it'll help the department out. For example, one of the things that we did, and I'll see if I can maybe find the example as well, but you know how you're always getting called to the OR. Well, I shouldn't say always because that doesn't sound good, but when you get called to the OR to do a sponge count, and you're looking for any retained surgical instruments, let's say, and oftentimes it's just a missing sponge because they look different when they're wet than they do when they're dry, sometimes under fluoroscopy. And so if I do a search for, if I did surgical, foreign body and radiopaque surgical items on film. So what we did is we laid out a whole bunch of different kinds of the objects, and took a film of them, and then also took a film of them wet. So like we took the sponges and we got them wet, so you could see the fluoroscopic image or the x-ray image of both the dry and wet version. I wonder if this would work. No source selected. Dadgum. Choose a source from the drop down on the left. Obviously I've never done this before, but I'm going to play with it anyway. I'm trying to find out how to switch. No source selected. Choose a source from the drop down on the left. There's no source. Screen capture. Oh, there we go. How about that? Nope, wrong screen. Hang in there. We'll get there. Boom, there it is. So this is a blue towel dry, white towel dry, vessel loop and piece, red maxi, white maxi, or white mini. Then we took the towels and kind of wadded them up wet. We showed, what is that? Vessel loops, different needles, different instruments. And so you can see the dry Raytech, the wet baby lap, wet lap, Raytech. So what this does is we're able to post this up in the OR and help to educate the OR staff on what these things look like, because we'll just run up and take the picture, right, and then we're done. They're the ones, and the RADs have to look at it, so the RADs really enjoyed these. So this is just, I'm just trying to give you an example of kind of an extra thing you can do when your boss thinks there's nothing going on and they want to send you home. Say, look, we don't have one of these. How about letting me in, and go to my website and show them that page. Show them what it looks like, and I've got a whole article on why it's helpful and what it's good for. So I wanted to show you that one. That's an example of the kind of things I'm going to show you in this video that you can be working on instead of going home and burning your PTO when you don't want to. Another one is accreditations. So every modality basically should hopefully get accredited, like through the ACR. At least your bigger hospitals do. Sometimes your critical access hospitals don't go that far out there. It shows that you're ahead of the game if you are, but not all of them are. But CT, for example, to get accredited through the ACR, you have to take a set of images and submit them electronically to the ACR, and they look through them, and if they don't like them, they reject them, and you've got to do it again. So, for example, last time I did ACR accreditation for CT, I had to send an adult head and a pediatric head, an adult chest, I believe a pediatric chest, and an adult abdomen. If you're not dealing with a lot of pediatrics at your hospital, you don't necessarily have to do the pediatrics, but the ACR will tell you what you need to send them. So where I was at, we did an adult and pediatric head, which means I had to image an adult head in CT, and it basically had to be perfect. And you know how rare those are, especially from ER patients. So you're given a good 3 to 6 months to capture these images, because you really have to cherry pick and wait for what we call a walkie-talkie who comes in outpatient, not an inebriated ER patient that never holds still. But my point is, accreditations are difficult and they're stressful. And usually there's just one person in the department, in the modality, that's stuck doing them. Sometimes it's a supervisor, sometimes it's a lead tech. It depends on your structure. But if you don't have anything to do and your facility is trying to send you home, you can offer to learn how to do the accreditation for your department. It's an annual thing, so you don't have to do it that often, but it's also something you can't wait till the last minute to learn how to do. And do some investigation. Maybe the person that does your accreditation, maybe there's only one. What if that person's not there the next time the recertification rolls around, or they're out sick? Or, you know, it's sometimes easier to get good quality images on second shift, or I won't even say third shift. So accreditations is another thing you can look into doing during downtime. Learning how to do that, learning what images. There's checklists that the ACR will give you. Let's see if I got one. Medical imaging, no, I don't. But I do have that, the frequency. So it looks like they're good for 2 to 3 years, depending on the modality. So once you knock it out, it's good for a couple of years. Breast care services were, I believe, annual, but for the most part, 2 to 3 years. So just something for you to think about. Another thing you can participate in are audits. There are different kinds of audits. There are simple ones, and there are big, fat, hairy ones. We used to do audits, for example. I was on a committee where once a quarter or so, you have a little checklist. You walk around, you know, a clipboard, and you're sent to another department. And I say that only with the reminder that you can do it in your own department as well, because it should get done monthly in your own department. It's things like looking for broken ceiling tiles or any wet spots on ceiling tiles, making sure there's nothing blocking the fire extinguishers, making sure there's nothing on top shelves within 12 inches or so of the ceiling. Let me see if I got one of those open for you. Yeah, here's one. So we toured, are the ceiling tiles present and free from stains, visible dirt, and holes larger than a quarter, or are there gaps and breaks? Because if there are, you have to put in a working order and get them fixed. And you have to do that because if you get inspected by the state or JACO or whoever is inspecting your facility, they'll cite you for these kinds of things. Is there 18 inches of clearance below the ceiling fire sprinkler heads? Are the sprinklers free of dust and grime or other damage? Are the, I think it's called escutcheon rings. That's the, you know how the fire things hang down with the little prickly, I don't know, round, looks like a gear, but above it is a circle or a ring. That's the escutcheon ring, whatever it's called. If those are missing, that's a problem. That's a ding on your inspection. Is there, let's see, our inspection and preventative maintenance stickers indicating last inspection date affixed to each medical device. These are all things that every department has to have reviewed at least quarterly, if not monthly. Are the temperature and humidity levels being monitored and documented in appropriate areas, like cath labs, special procedure rooms, ICU, ER, GI operating rooms? There's a whole bunch of them that you have to monitor that on. Are egress corridors and exits free of obstruction? The corridor may only contain wheeled items and they must be in use and not stored. All items must be on one side of the corridor. Are doors clear of any items or decor? It is only acceptable if it's an approved safety information signage that is laminated and stuck with adhesive. So remember back in the day, you could print something off and tape it up, like Christmas party's coming, you put the sign up. You can't do any of that anymore. It's a fire hazard. It has to be laminated and affixed. Are all fire extinguishers, pull stations, electric boxes, and med gas valves unobstructed? Are sharps and sharps items properly stored and secured? They're always checking that. Excuse me. Sharps containers are unobstructed and less than 2/3 full. I'm just reading you what some basic inspection stuff is for every department. You can write these down and create your own. You can ask if there is one used at your work, but these are things that could be checked on your downtime if there's no patients due to the coronavirus or something keeping patients out. Are medications and prescription pads securely stored so they're not accessible by individuals without authority to handle them? Are they in a locked container, in a locked room, or under constant surveillance? Are eye wash stations easily identifiable, unobstructed, and tested weekly? Are outside shipping boxes, meaning cardboard, not found in patient areas or clean storage areas? You can't have cardboard in a clean storage area. Cardboard is not to be stored on the floor. Is furniture in good repair and free from damage that would compromise cleanliness? Are all personnel and contractors wearing identification appropriately? You don't ever get caught at work without your badge on. So I'll stop. Those are just some basic inspection items. And we're talking about things you can offer to do. If you don't have any patients, go to your boss, say, instead of me going home, can I do an inspection of our department? I have this list of things that I know are common that we can get dinged for. Do you mind? Or do you have a list you'd like me to look at? Another thing you can do is offer to be a part of committees. There's always tons of committees, and the boss doesn't want to be on all of them. I promise you, you can offer to be on committees. There's stuff like, here's some of the ones I had to be on in the past. The Hand Hygiene Committee, the No Patient Harm Committee, Quality and Patient Safety Committee, Stewardship Steering Committee. And then I, as a director, always had internal committees for my employees. I had 4 that I made. I had a committee for the Christmas party, a committee for National Rad Tech Week, a committee for employee appreciation, and a committee for community service. And it was a volunteer basis. Nobody had to do it. But I knew if, mental note, if people did it, and there's an annual evaluation on how involved you are with your job. The Christmas committee just planned the Christmas party. National Rad Tech Week, you just planned what happened during that week. Employee appreciation, we would come up with a way to show appreciation to our team, and they would kind of meet and talk about different ways to do that and action plans for that. And then community service, I'd like to see our staff do at least 2 community service projects a year, whether that's meeting on a Saturday at our hospital and just picking up trash out in the parking lot, or one of my favorites was a nonprofit called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. It's a group here in southern Idaho that builds beds for kids that don't have beds. And we would go there and spend a Saturday. They had kind of a nice assembly line of all the different processes to build the beds, and you just picked a spot in line and did your thing. And by the end of the day, I think we built like 60 beds. So it was pretty cool. But there's, internal committees that you might be able to partake in, or, if there's not a meeting going on that day that they want to send you home, just have an idea in your mind or a list of things that need to get done in that committee. So you can say, hey, instead of me going home, I'm in this committee and there's X, Y, Z that I need to do. How about if I sit down and plan that out and take care of that for the next couple hours? There's competencies. If you are lucky enough to have a staff educator or something along those lines, that's the person who watches your staff competencies. And by that I mean once a year they get with every tech and they go through every exam, and they either watch you or in some manner make sure that you understand how to do each procedure. And if you don't have an educator that stays on top of that, you could offer to do that. You could offer to be the person that observes other people do each type of exam and make sure that they're doing everything correctly, that they're not skipping any images or doing a procedure improperly. Then you can also check for compliance. That kind of goes along with the audits, but there's things you can check as far as is the equipment getting QC'd on a regular basis. You should have a book somewhere or file somewhere that says, okay, there's a GE X-ray room in room 1, and there should be a book that says it's getting QC'd every quarter, and it shows who the technician was that came and serviced the machine, any notes of what they found wrong with it. Somebody's got to be keeping track of the equipment and making sure that it's being serviced routinely and things like that, so you could offer to help out with that. There's always your email that you don't check, right? Because everybody gets email and we don't like it and we don't want to check it, and so much of it's just garbage anyway. But you should be checking on a regular basis. Your boss should be able to count on sending you an email and getting a reply within a reasonable amount of time. But take some time, if you don't have anything to do, to check your emails. Look for assignments. Do you have annual learning modules that you have to do? All your compliance modules and sexual harassment modules and hand hygiene modules and patient safety and proper lifting techniques and all the modules that we have to do every year to stay on top of that stuff. So don't forget your email, check that, and make sure you're not missing any important items in there. You can offer to do equipment inspections. There should be an annual lead inspection going on at your facility where you place each piece of lead either under an x-ray machine or under a fluoro and check it for holes. I believe it has to be bigger than a dime for it to be considered time to replace, but check your local facility for the rules on that. But we take a whole weekend out of the year, or at least one of the places I was at, we take a whole weekend, put 3 techs on it, and they would process probably 600 pieces of lead, running them through fluoro. You can run them through CT as well. I think it was CT. But you need to check them for holes and rips and anything that you might be getting letting raise through, and time to replace them if they. And some places will give you credit for them too, because they can cut a full-size apron down into different thyroid shields or something like that. So it could be recyclable. Other things you can do in downtime, let's see, ergonomics. You should be taking time to do stretches before and during your shift. So like sonographers are very highly susceptible to wrist injuries, shoulder injuries. I mean, when you're pinching that transducer and twisting it and turning it, I'm too close to the camera. When you're reaching way over to that left kidney and you're turning and you're trying to push and pinch, and you know, a lot of risk there. So there's a lot of stretches that sonographers should be doing before their shift and throughout the day to keep their stuff limber, to keep them from getting workplace injuries. And that really goes for any tech. You can be doing exercises for your back and your legs and your upper body, because every tech has to move patients on and off tables, in and out of wheelchairs, on and off gurneys. Look into the ergonomics. If you don't know what they are for your modality, look into them and be practicing those in your downtime, and your boss should have no problem with you taking some time to stay healthy and limber. QC your images. You should be taking the time to look at everything and see if you could have done it better, or if there's anything you missed, or your boss may want to send you home for the day, but say, you know what, I did quite a few images today. Would you mind if I took just a half hour to go through them and look at them and see if I could have done anything any better? Some places have supervisors, and that's their job, to sit at the desk and QC images before the tech moves on to the next study, but not many places. I've only seen one that has somebody that's paid to sit there and do that. Something I always wanted to implement was one central person that looked at every single study from every modality, didn't stop the tech while that process was going on, but it prevented stuff every now and then with the wrong name or the wrong marker or something like that, getting to a radiologist who then would get on the phone and chew out the tech for sending the wrong stuff or whatever. It would be nice to have that buffer between the techs and the docs, just one person QCing everything, to prevent a lot of that nonsense. But, the docs would say that's the tech's job. They should be sending me appropriate stuff, and that's kind of hard to argue against that. But still, we all make mistakes. It'd be nice to have somebody to catch that. So maybe you can tell your boss, before I go home, I'd like to take a little bit of time to just QC my stuff. It's something I do every day, and I'm just keeping track of all my exams and learning from my mistakes. What else could you do? Review your job description. You might be surprised what it says. How long has it been since you were hired? 5, 10 years? I know I've looked back at job description before. I went, oh, okay. I don't remember that, but I need to look into that now and make sure I'm capable. So take some time to review your job description and know what it says you are responsible for. And next to this one, I got the words El Yucko, but it's policy review. You can always offer to help with policy reviews. Policy reviews are snoozers. They should be reviewed every year. It's like reading Latin. It's so boring. But, like MRI, for example, if you haven't changed your MRI policy to include ultraviolet tattoos, maybe it's time to upgrade your policy. Ultraviolet tattoos have metal in them. I think a lot of them have metal in them, which can lead to burning, depending on location. And a lot of people don't admit to having them because they think, well, you can't see them, so you won't even know I have them, and end up getting a little discomfort from the scan. So it doesn't take long to read through one policy. Hopefully it's only 3 or 4 pages, but just use your common sense. If you're a CT tech, look through the CT policies, and if it's still telling you some antiquated way of determining how much contrast to inject the patient, maybe you should approach the boss, say, hey boss, this is a 5-year-old policy. It doesn't talk about weight-based contrast like we're doing now. I think it needs to be updated. Is this something I can do during my downtime? And I'm sure they'd be happy to let you do that, because policies are at times suck. Safety huddles. Are you guys having safety huddles? You should have safety huddles in the morning or at the beginning of your shift to just kind of 5-minute go over what's going on, kind of like a shift handoff, but it also talks about certain things that are being acted on. We had a system set up at one of my places that I really enjoyed. It had a big board up on the wall, and it had different phases of problems that employees would bring up. Let's say they had a problem with, I can't think of one that's really all that great right now, but they would bring up a problem. They would talk about it in a quick little meeting and decide, okay, Bob, you brought it up. Why don't you track down what other departments are doing about it, if that's applicable? And Sally, why don't you take this aspect of it? And the next time we meet, we'll see what you guys found out. And it's kind of a weekly meeting. But that is how we addressed all the problems that the techs saw at their level. Because as a director, you don't see a lot of those day-to-day problems, but the techs do. So at this board, I gave them the ability to address those problems. And if I needed to step in or go to another director of another department to get a problem solved, then I would step in. Otherwise, the techs just solved all their own problems, and it worked great. So if you have one of those kind of safety huddles or leadership standard work is what ours was called, then you could be working on your assignment from that action item during your downtime or when your boss wants to send you home. So I'm going to just scroll back one more time and look through. I think for the most part, that's some of the things that maybe your leadership does, but you could help out with, or maybe your leadership doesn't, and somebody should be doing it, and maybe you can help out in that way. I'm just trying to help you guys keep your hours. I don't want you using your PTO just to save the hospital a few bucks. There's other things that you guys could be doing that's of value to the department instead of going home and burning your hard-earned PTO. And I'm only, a little bitter because I watched my wife's PTO get completely obliterated to nothing. She's an X-ray tech, and she burned all of her PTO for the sake of the company, so that they didn't have to pay her when there was a low volume count. But there's other ways to keep people busy. Equipment needs to be cleaned. Lots of things that you can do. So anyway, I hope this helps. I hope the quality of the video came out okay. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so more techs can find out about the channel. If you have any questions about radiology, or if you're a student looking to get into the field and you have questions, or even outside, not even a student yet, post your questions in the comments section. I'll be happy to answer them. I have a blog that has over 90 articles that answer questions about radiology at theradiologictechnologist.com. So there's 90 articles there, 30 plus videos here, a couple podcasts that are really cool. I'd like to get back into those someday. They just take so much time to do those. And that's it. So have a great week. Take care.